The massive form of the HLUS Dauntless tore through the fabric of space, its dark hull reflecting the light of distant stars. The ship's emergence sent ripples through the local sensor networks, alerting every nearby civilization to its presence. At nearly 2 kilometers in length, the human warship dwarfed most vessels in known space. Captain Hee-Jin Park maintained her composed demeanor on the bridge, though her fingers tightened slightly on the command chair's armrest. This was humanity's first venture into this unexplored sector, and first impressions mattered. The bridge crew worked efficiently at their stations, monitoring the ship's systems after the stressful hyperspace transit. Lieutenant Kim Dae-sung's console suddenly lit up with incoming signals. His eyes widened as he processed the flood of data. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple transmission sources. At least 3 distinct species are broadcasting on various frequencies. The universal translator is having trouble keeping up." The bridge's main display showed their position relative to the nearest star systems. The Dauntless had emerged in a relatively busy sector, with several inhabited worlds within sensor range. Small vessels scattered like startled fish at their arrival, rushing to put distance between themselves and the unknown ship. "Play the transmissions, Lieutenant," Park ordered, her voice steady despite the tension. The bridge filled with a cacophony of alien languages, overlapping and urgent. The ship's AI worked to translate, converting the alien speech into understandable terms. "Warning: large vessel of unknown origin. Military-grade armor detected. All ships advised to maintain distance. Defense forces mobilizing." The captain's expression remained neutral, but concern flickered in her eyes. This wasn't the welcome they had hoped for. The Dauntless was an exploration vessel, despite its impressive armament. Its weapons were meant for defense, not conquest. "Multiple ships approaching from the third planet in the nearby system," reported the sensor officer. "Their energy signatures suggest defensive capabilities, but nothing that matches our level of technology." Through the bridge's panoramic viewport, Park could see the local vessels taking up defensive positions. Their designs were varied. Some organic-looking, others geometric, reflecting the diversity of the species that built them. All were dwarfed by the Dauntless's imposing silhouette. "Lieutenant Kim, prepare a standard greeting package," Park ordered. "Make it clear we're here on a peaceful mission." She paused, considering their options. "Include basic information about Earth and human civilization. Let's try to avoid any unfortunate misunderstandings." As Kim worked to compose the message, more alerts sounded from the sensor station. The local ships were powering up their weapon systems. While they posed no serious threat to the Dauntless's advanced shields, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Ma'am," Kim called out, his voice tense, "I'm detecting encoded transmissions between the defense vessels. They appear to be coordinating their positions." He worked quickly at his console, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The translator suggests they're discussing containment strategies. Park rose from her chair, clasping her hands behind her back as she studied the tactical display. The local ships had arranged themselves in a loose sphere around the Dauntless, maintaining what they probably considered a safe distance. Their caution was understandable. A massive warship appearing without warning would frighten any civilization. "Hold position," she commanded. "Power down our weapon systems but maintain shields at standard strength. Let's show them we're not here to fight." The bridge crew acknowledged her orders, and the ship's energy signature shifted subtly as various systems powered down. "Greeting package ready for transmission," Kim reported, broadcasting on all detected frequencies. The message went out, carrying words of peace in multiple formats. The bridge crew waited tensely as the local ships processed the transmission. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the defensive sphere began to relax. Some vessels maintained their positions, but others backed away slightly. "New transmission incoming," Kim announced. "Single source, tight beam." The translator indicates they're requesting direct communication with our command staff. Park allowed herself a small smile. First contact situations were always delicate, but this one might still be salvageable. "Accept the transmission, Lieutenant. Let's introduce ourselves properly to our new neighbors. As the communication channel opened, the crew of the Dauntless prepared to make history. Their mission was about to become far more interesting than anyone had anticipated, and Captain Park knew that every word and action from this point forward would help shape humanity's relationship with these unknown civilizations. Lieutenant Lee Sunmai rubbed her tired eyes as another wave of panicked messages flooded her communications array. The holographic display before her pulsed with dozens of incoming transmissions, each one more alarming than the last. The ship's AI was working overtime to translate the various alien languages, but the meaning was clear even through the garbled translations. "We will not surrender our worlds," one message declared. "Our people will fight to the last defender." The vessel's weapons could destroy a small moon, another alien transmission warned. All civilian ships must evacuate immediately. Captain Park walked the bridge slowly, her face betraying none of the frustration she felt inside. The Dauntless had been in this sector for 6 hours, and despite their best efforts at peaceful communication, the situation was getting worse by the minute. "Captain," Lee called out, pointing to a new signal on her display. "They're starting to broadcast what appears to be their version of historical records. They're comparing us to something called the Great HFYs, apparently a conquest force that nearly wiped out several civilizations in this region centuries ago." The main screen showed more defensive ships taking position around the inhabited worlds. Their formations were impressive, if ultimately futile against a vessel of the Dauntless's capabilities. The local ships were arranging themselves in layers, smaller craft in front, larger vessels behind them. "They're preparing for a suicide defense," the tactical officer observed. "Those smaller ships in front, they're loaded with high-yield explosives. They plan to sacrifice themselves to protect their worlds." Captain Park's expression softened slightly. She understood their fear all too well. Humanity had once been in a similar position, centuries ago, when they first encountered advanced alien civilizations. "Lieutenant Lee, can we get a clear channel to their command vessels?" Lee's fingers moved quickly across her console. "They're actively jamming most frequencies, Captain. They think we'll use communication channels to deliver computer viruses or mind control signals." She paused, checking another reading. "According to these transmissions, 3 different species have already evacuated their orbital stations. They're convinced we're going to seize their space infrastructure." The bridge crew watched as civilian ships streamed away from the nearby planets, carrying refugees to safer systems. The sight made Park's heart heavy. This was exactly the opposite of what they had hoped to achieve in this mission. "New development," Lee reported suddenly. "They're broadcasting some kind of religious message now. Their holy texts apparently warn about giants from the void coming to harvest their worlds." She shook her head in disbelief. "They think we're the harbingers of their apocalypse." Park moved to stand beside Lee's station, watching the translation scroll across the screen. The messages were becoming increasingly desperate. Some ships were broadcasting final farewells to their families. Others were transmitting technical data about the Dauntless to distant worlds, warning them to prepare for invasion. "Their fear is making them see threats in everything we do," Lee said quietly. "When we powered down our weapons, they thought we were charging something worse. When we backed away, they assumed we were creating space for reinforcements to arrive." The tactical display showed more ships arriving from nearby systems. Not warships this time, but medical vessels and civilian transports. They were evacuating the sick and wounded, preparing for what they believed would be a devastating war. "Captain," Lee said suddenly, her voice urgent, "I'm picking up something different. A small transmission, very weak." She adjusted her controls, trying to clean up the signal. It's coming from a scientific outpost on one of the moons. They're requesting direct contact." Park leaned forward, interested. "Can you isolate the signal?" "Yes, Mom. They're using a very simple numeric code, something our AI can translate clearly." Lee worked quickly, establishing a connection. "They say they've studied our language patterns and ship design. They don't believe we're here to conquer them, but they're being ignored by their military leadership. A small smile crossed Park's face. Finally, a ray of hope. Send them our full diplomatic package, Lieutenant. Maybe they can help their people understand we're not the monsters they think we are. As Lee transmitted the data, the bridge crew watched tensely. Everything now depended on whether these alien scientists could convince their leaders that humanity had come in peace, not war. The next few hours would determine whether this first contact ended in understanding or tragedy. Commander Choi Ta-won walked briskly through the Dauntless's corridors, his tablet filled with newly decoded data. The ship's advanced AI had finally broken through the encryption on several local data networks, revealing a pattern that changed everything about their mission. He entered the bridge, where Captain Park was still dealing with the diplomatic crisis. "Captain, you need to see this immediately," he said, pulling up a three-dimensional map of the sector. Red dots appeared across the display, each marking an attack site. "These are raid locations from the past 6 months," he explained, as Park studied the pattern. "The local species weren't just afraid of us. They've been under constant attack from someone else. Pirates have been systematically targeting their shipping lanes and outer colonies." The map expanded, showing the paths of the raider vessels. They moved like predators, striking quickly and vanishing into the darkness between stars. Dozens of colonies had been hit, their resources stolen, their people taken. "The attack patterns match known pirate tactics from the Orion Arm," Choi continued. "The same group we've been hunting for the past year. They didn't just flee human space, they set up a new operation here." Park's expression hardened as she watched the simulation of the pirates' movements. "Show me the damage assessments," she ordered. The display shifted, revealing the true extent of the devastation. Entire stations had been stripped bare. Agricultural worlds had lost their harvests. Mining colonies had been raided for precious minerals. But worst of all were the population numbers. Thousands of people from various species had vanished, taken as slaves or worse. "The local species are hiding it well," Choi noted. "They don't want to appear weak, but these pirates have been bleeding them dry for months. Their defensive forces are stretched thin trying to protect too many targets." A new alert flashed on the display. "Fresh attack reported," Choi said quickly, zooming in on the location. "Small mining outpost, mostly automated. The pirates hit it less than 6 hours ago. We might still be able to track their energy signature." Park studied the data carefully. The pirates were using advanced technology, likely stolen from more developed worlds. Their ships were smaller than the Dauntless, but fast and well-armed. Perfect for quick strikes against civilian targets. "They're getting bolder," Choi pointed out. "The attacks are increasing in frequency. This sector's civilizations aren't technologically advanced enough to stop them. That's why they panicked when we arrived. They thought we were part of the pirate fleet." The display showed another pattern. The pirates were slowly pushing deeper into populated areas. What had started as raids on the fringes was becoming a full-scale invasion. Several smaller species had already abandoned their outer colonies, retreating to their homeworlds. "There's more," Choi said grimly. He pulled up intercepted communications between pirate vessels. "They're planning something big. Multiple fleet movements, coordinated attacks. They're going to hit something important, and soon." Park watched as the tactical computer calculated possible targets. Several major population centers were within range of the pirates' last known positions. Any one of them could be devastated by a large-scale attack. "The local species don't trust us enough to warn them," Choi said quietly. "And even if we did, they probably wouldn't believe us. They're convinced we're an invasion force." Park stood silent for a moment, weighing their options. The Dauntless had been sent to this sector to explore, not to fight. But they couldn't stand by and watch innocent people suffer. "Start tracking those energy signatures," she ordered. "I want to know every possible location where those pirates might be hiding. We'll prove our intentions to the local species by dealing with their real enemy." Choi nodded and began coordinating with the sensor teams. The Dauntless's advanced tracking systems were far superior to anything the pirates had encountered before. If they could find the raiders' base of operations, they could end this threat permanently. As the commander worked, Park watched the map of attack sites with grim determination. The pirates had chosen this sector because they thought its inhabitants were too weak to fight back. They never expected to encounter a human warship. Soon, they would learn just how costly that mistake had been. "Send word to all departments," Park commanded. "We're switching from exploration protocols to combat status. It's time to show these raiders why humanity's ships are feared across 3 spiral arms." The agricultural world of Haven spun beneath the Dauntless, its green fields visible even from orbit. Pirate ships swarmed around the planet's main settlement like angry wasps, their weapons lighting up the night side. Weapons Officer Kang Min-ho watched them through the targeting system, his hands steady on the controls. "Multiple civilian ships still in the attack zone," he reported, marking their positions on the tactical display. The pirates had struck during the harvest, when the orbital loading stations were full of food meant for other worlds. Now those same stations were burning, their crews trapped inside. Captain Park stood behind Min-ho's station, watching the battle unfold. "Target their engines first," she ordered. "We need to keep them from escaping with hostages." The pirates had already started loading captured civilians onto their larger vessels. Min-ho's fingers danced across his console, the Dauntless's advanced targeting systems locking onto the nearest pirate ship. The human vessel's weapons were designed for precision. They could disable an enemy without destroying it completely. "First target locked," he announced. "Firing solution ready." "Execute," Park commanded. A beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the Dauntless, striking the pirate vessel's engine housing. The ship's power core shut down immediately, leaving it drifting in space. Before the other raiders could react, 2 more precision strikes disabled their companions. "They're breaking formation," Min-ho reported. The remaining pirate ships were scattering, abandoning their attack on the settlement. 3 vessels attempting to jump to hyperspace. Park's voice was calm but firm. "Don't let them escape. Disable their jump drives." More energy beams struck out from the Dauntless, each shot perfectly placed. The pirates' engines flared and died, leaving them stranded. Their return fire splashed harmlessly against the human warship's shields. "Local defense forces approaching," the sensor officer called out. "They're watching us, Captain." Park nodded. This was their chance to show the sector's inhabitants that humanity could be trusted. "Min-ho, target the raiders' weapon systems next. Clean shots only. No debris that could endanger the civilian ships." The weapons officer worked with surgical precision, systematically disarming each pirate vessel. The Dauntless's advanced targeting computers allowed him to pick out specific components, leaving the ships intact but harmless. "Pirates attempting to contact us," communications reported. "They're offering to surrender." "Accept their surrender," Park ordered, "but keep weapons locked on them. These raiders are known for deception." Min-ho maintained his target locks as the pirate crews powered down their remaining systems. On the main screen, they could see escape pods launching from some of the disabled ships, their crews abandoning their vessels rather than face capture. "Local security forces are moving to intercept the escape pods," Min-ho reported. "Should we assist?" Park watched as the defenders approached, their smaller ships no longer showing signs of fear toward the Dauntless. "Let them handle the captures. This is their territory. We're just here to help." The battle had lasted less than 15 minutes. The settlement below was largely undamaged, its people safe. The loading stations, though damaged, were still intact enough to save most of the harvest. Most importantly, not a single civilian ship had been lost. "Targeting computer shows all hostile vessels neutralized," Min-ho announced. "No casualties among the pirate crews. No collateral damage to civilian infrastructure." Park allowed herself a small smile. "Well done, Officer Kang. Send the tactical data to the local authorities. Let them see exactly how we handled the situation." The defenders were already moving in to secure the disabled pirate ships. Their initial fear of the Dauntless had been replaced by cautious respect. They had witnessed how humans fought, not with blind destruction, but with precision and restraint. Message from the settlement's governor. Communications called out. They're asking permission to send a delegation to thank us personally. Permission granted, Park replied. Officer Kang, power down the weapon systems, but maintain scanning coverage of the area. The pirates might have friends nearby. Minho nodded, his hand still ready at the controls. The Dauntless had won more than just a battle today. They had shown this sector that humanity's power came with responsibility, that their strength existed to protect, not to conquer. Dr. Yoon, Jai-Yun moved swiftly through the Dauntless's medical bay, checking patients with practiced efficiency. The large room had been transformed into a makeshift emergency center, with beds holding both injured civilians from the settlement and wounded pirates from the captured ships. Check the atmospheric settings for the Nerix patients, she called to her team, noticing one of the alien civilians showing signs of breathing distress. They need higher oxygen levels than standard. Her medical staff adjusted the environmental controls, and the patient's color improved almost immediately. Several local representatives stood at the entrance to the medical bay, their expressions a mixture of confusion and curiosity. They watched as human doctors moved from bed to bed, treating injured pirates with the same careful attention they gave to the civilian casualties. I don't understand, one of the observers finally said, their translator converting the clicks and whistles into understandable speech. These raiders attacked our people. Why do you waste medicine on them? Jai-Yun paused in her work, considering how to explain. Every patient deserves care, she said simply, adjusting the bandage on a pirate's plasma burn. That's how humanity practices medicine. The medical bay hummed with activity as nurses and doctors worked. Advanced diagnostic equipment scanned patients of various species, adapting their treatments to different physiologies. The pirates, despite their crimes, submitted quietly to treatment, perhaps as surprised by the care as the local observers were. They took our children, another representative protested. Stole our food, yet you heal them. Jai-Yun moved to treat a young alien child, one of the rescued hostages. Yes, she replied, checking the child's vital signs, because that's what makes us different from them. We don't let hatred guide our actions. The medical team had worked through the night, treating injuries from the battle. Some were serious, plasma burns, decompression injuries, broken bones. Others were minor, but all received attention. The pirates, expecting harsh treatment, seemed bewildered by the gentle care. Your medicines are advanced, one of the observers noted, watching as a regeneration unit sealed a serious wound. You could save these treatments for your allies only. Jai-Yun shook her head, moving to check on a pirate with a severe concussion. Medicine isn't a weapon, she explained. We don't use it to punish or reward. Every patient in this bay is simply someone who needs help. The local representatives watched as she treated the pirate's injury, her movements gentle but professional. The pirate, a tough-looking individual with cybernetic enhancements, actually murmured thanks when she finished. Besides, Jai-Yun added, making notes in her medical log, healthy prisoners can stand trial for their crimes. Justice is served better by healing than by revenge. Throughout the day, more observers came to watch the human medical team work. They saw pirates and victims lying in adjacent beds, receiving equal care. They witnessed human doctors working tirelessly to save lives, regardless of who those lives belonged to. One of the pirates is asking to speak with settlement authorities, a nurse reported. He wants to provide information about other raider bases. Jai-Yun nodded, unsurprised. She had seen this before. Kindness often accomplished what cruelty could not. The pirates, expecting torture or neglect, found their worldview challenged by human compassion. Your way is strange to us, one of the observers admitted later, as the medical team prepared for shift change. But perhaps there is wisdom in it. The pirates seem changed by your treatment. Jai-Yun smiled slightly as she checked her last patient of the shift. Humanity learned long ago that how we treat our enemies says more about us than about them. Every person in this bay, friend or foe, is someone's child, someone's family. The medical bay gradually quieted as night cycle approached. The patients, both pirate and civilian, rested under the watchful care of human medical staff. The local representatives had stopped protesting the treatment of raiders, instead watching with growing understanding. "Get some rest, doctor," one of them said as Jai Yun prepared to leave. "You have taught us something important today." She nodded tiredly, knowing that tomorrow would bring more patients, more challenges. But for now, she was satisfied. In this room, at least, humanity had shown these aliens a better way, not through weapons or threats, but through the simple act of caring for all who needed help. Navigator Song Hai-Ri watched the tactical display as dozens of ships moved in perfect formation behind the Dauntless. The screen showed vessels of all shapes and sizes, sleek defense cruisers from Haven, organic-looking ships from the Nyrix worlds, and angular combat vessels from 3 other local species, all of them following the human warship's lead. "Formation holding at optimal spread," she reported, her fingers moving across the navigation controls. All Allied vessels maintaining position. The combined fleet moved through space like a well-choreographed dance, each ship keeping precise distance from its neighbors. The target lay ahead, a massive asteroid that had been converted into a pirate stronghold. Intelligence from captured raiders had confirmed this was their main base, where they stored their stolen goods and kept their prisoners. Now it would become their last stand. Receiving tactical data from Allied ships, the communications officer announced, "They're detecting multiple defense platforms around the asteroid. Heavy weapons, but nothing we haven't handled before." Captain Park stood at her command station, watching the approaching battle zone. The pirates had chosen their hideout well. The asteroid's mineral content made long-range scanning difficult, and natural radiation fields provided cover for their activities. But they hadn't counted on facing a united force. "All ships report weapons ready," Hai-Ri called out. Allied vessels are taking up their assigned attack positions. The fleet split into 3 groups, just as they had practiced. Faster ships moved to cut off escape routes, while heavier vessels prepared for the main assault. The first shots came from hidden defense turrets in the asteroid field. The pirates had scattered automated weapons through the rocks, hoping to break up any attacking formation. But the combined fleet had trained for this. "Evasive pattern Delta," Hai-Ri called out, and the entire fleet moved as one. Ships weaved between the incoming fire, their crews executing maneuvers they had learned from human combat experts. What would have once been chaos was now coordinated action. Multiple hostile ships launching from hidden bays, Tactical reported. "They're trying to scatter our formation." Pirate vessels emerged from concealed docks, their weapons blazing. But instead of finding easy targets, they faced an organized response. Hai-Ri's hands flew across her console as she coordinated the fleet's movements. The Dauntless led one wing of ships in a sweeping attack, while their allies pressed from other angles. The pirates found themselves caught in a 3-dimensional trap of their own making. "Allied cruiser taking heavy fire," someone called out. Without hesitation, 2 other ships moved to support their companion, their combined shields absorbing the attack. This was what they had trained for, different species working as one fleet, protecting each other. The battle intensified as they pushed closer to the asteroid. More pirate ships emerged, fighting with the desperation of cornered predators. But they faced an enemy they had never expected. A coalition of their former victims, led by human tactical experience. "Main defense grid ahead," Hai-Ri announced. "All ships in position for synchronized strike." They had one chance to breach the pirates' inner defenses. The entire fleet would have to hit the same point simultaneously. "Fire," Park ordered, and every ship in the combined fleet released their weapons at once. The coordinated blast overwhelmed the pirates' shields, creating an opening in their defenses. Ships surged forward, pressing their advantage. Hai-Ri kept the fleet moving in perfect coordination as they entered the final phase. The pirates' formation was breaking, their ships trying to flee in different directions. But everywhere they turned, they found Allied vessels waiting for them. Enemy vessels powering down. Tactical reported. They're surrendering. One by one, the pirate ships cut their engines and weapons. Their great stronghold, once thought impregnable, had fallen to the combined might of their former victims. All ships hold position. High commanded. The fleet came to a stop, maintaining their combat formation until they were sure the surrender was genuine. They had trained for victory, but also for caution. As boarding parties prepared to secure the asteroid base and free the prisoners, Hyrie allowed herself a small smile. The tactical display showed the aftermath of their victory. Former enemies now working together, different species united in a common cause. Send the signal, Park ordered. Mission accomplished. The message went out to all ships in their makeshift fleet. The sector would sleep safer tonight, knowing that cooperation had accomplished what division could not. The grand hall of Haven's orbital station hummed with activity as representatives from 6 different species gathered for the historic ceremony. Captain Park stood at the center of the assembled dignitaries, her dress uniform pristine, while Representative Oh Sung-ho carried the document that would forge a new alliance between humanity and the sector's inhabitants. Light from the system's stars streamed through the station's massive windows, casting a golden glow over the proceedings. The Dauntless hung in space beyond, its dark hull now a symbol of protection rather than fear. Around it, ships from various species patrolled in familiar formation, their crews having learned to work together during the campaign against the pirates. We gather today not just as allies in war, Oh began, his voice carrying across the quiet hall, but as partners in peace. The translator devices carried his words to every species present, but the meaning was clear in any language. Where there had once been fear and mistrust, now stood understanding. The treaty itself was simple, a mutual defense pact that would see human ships regularly patrol the sector alongside local forces. The Dauntless would be the first of many human vessels to make this region their home, sharing technology and expertise with their new allies. Captain Park stepped forward to sign first, her pen marking the document with precise strokes. Representatives from each species followed, adding their own unique signatures. Some pressed tentacles into ink, others used light-based marking systems, but each mark carried the same weight of promise. Around the hall, crew members from the Dauntless mingled with their alien counterparts. Navigator Song Hyrie discussed stellar mapping techniques with a group of Nyrix pilots, their earlier fears of humans completely forgotten. Dr. Yoon Jae-yun shared medical knowledge with alien healers, each species learning from the other's expertise. Your ship will always have safe harbor in our worlds, one of the elder representatives said to Park after the signing. You have shown us that strength can serve wisdom, that power can protect rather than destroy. The station's kitchens had prepared food suitable for all species present, creating a literal feast of cooperation. Crew members tried alien delicacies while their new allies cautiously sampled human dishes. Cultural barriers fell away amid shared laughter and stories of their recent victory. Lieutenant Kim Dae-sung, who had first received those fearful warning messages when they arrived, now stood chatting with communications officers from 3 different species. They were already working on establishing standardized protocols for the joint fleet they would create. To think we once thought you were invaders, and Nyrix commander said, their translator conveying amusement. Now our ships train with yours, learning tactics we never imagined. The celebration continued as stars wheeled past the station's windows. Plans were already being made. Joint training exercises, cultural exchange programs, shared research projects. What had begun as a misunderstanding had evolved into something none of them had expected. Officer Kang Min-ho demonstrated human targeting systems to a group of fascinated alien weapons officers, showing them how precision could be more effective than raw power. The lessons learned during their campaign against the pirates would help protect this sector for generations to come. As the ceremony drew to a close, Captain Park stood with Representative Oh, watching their crews interact. "We came here looking for new worlds," she said quietly. "Instead, we found new friends." Ob nodded, understanding the significance of the moment. "And we who feared the unknown found protectors instead of conquerors. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all." The Dauntless would remain in the sector for another month, helping establish the frameworks of their new alliance. Other human ships would follow, not as invaders but as partners. The fear that had greeted their arrival was now just a memory, replaced by mutual respect and understanding. As the gathered species began to disperse to their ships, many stopped to exchange final words with their new allies. Promises were made to stay in touch, to continue learning from each other. What had started as a simple exploration mission had become the foundation for something much greater. The stars beyond the station's windows seemed brighter somehow, as if they too approved of this new alliance. In the space of a few weeks, enemies had become friends, fear had turned to trust, and a new chapter in the history of all their species had begun.